There's a strange illusion that exists in the human mind. It's the belief that saying something out loud somehow brings it closer to reality. When we tell others we're going to start a business, lose weight, or write a book, it feels like we've taken a step forward. But in truth, we've only taken a step sideways into a trap. Talking about your goals can create the emotional illusion of progress. You haven't written the book. You haven't built the product. You haven't run the marathon. But the praise you get for announcing your intentions gives you a dopamine hit, just like real success does. It feels good, and that's the danger. A study published in Psychological Science by researcher Peter Gollwitzer explored this exact phenomenon. Participants who shared their goals with others were less likely to follow through than those who kept their intentions to themselves. The public declaration gave them a false sense of completion, even before they'd done any meaningful work. This isn't just theory. It happens every day. You see it in the friend who posts on social media that they're finally gonna launch that brand. 2 weeks later, nothing. No logo, no product, no action. But the post got 143 likes and 22 comments. That little spike in validation, it quietly replaces the hunger to earn the real reward. Your brain can't always tell the difference between doing the thing and talking about doing the thing. The emotional reward shows up either way, and when you're already feeling the high, your motivation to work drops. It's human psychology, not weakness. There's a simple truth that many people ignore. Real progress happens in silence. Not because you're hiding from the world, but because you're protecting your energy. You're directing your focus toward effort, not applause. When you talk too soon, your words take up the space your work should occupy. It becomes about how you look rather than what you're building. And the danger is subtle. You might not even realize you're trading discipline for attention. Imagine a runner training for a race. If they wake up every morning and post their intentions to Instagram, they might feel like they've done something already. They haven't. The training hasn't happened yet. The miles haven't been logged. But their followers cheer and they feel seen. That emotion delays the grind. Think of a young entrepreneur who announces their new app idea to everyone they meet. They're excited, full of energy. But every time they share the vision and receive admiration, they get a sense of satisfaction. And slowly, the urgency fades. The app never gets built. Not because the idea wasn't good, but because they burned their fuel in conversation instead of creation. When you speak too early, you invite interference. Praise, doubt, envy, unsolicited advice, all of it can cloud your clarity. But the worst part is that you tell your subconscious. The reward comes from telling people, not from completing the mission. And once that belief takes root, it's hard to dig it out. There's power in restraint, power in holding the vision close, power in letting your commitment simmer under the surface where no one can dilute it with noise. Some of the most driven people in the world understand this instinctively. They don't announce their every move because they know that success doesn't come from declarations. It comes from consistency, sacrifice, and 100 small wins no one claps for. They stay silent not out of secrecy, but out of respect for the process, for the struggle, for the part of themselves that needs to grow before it's revealed to others. You don't owe the world your blueprint. You owe yourself your best work. And that begins the moment you stop trading progress for praise. Talking is easy, building is hard, and when you stop talking, you begin to make room for the hard things, the real things, to happen. If you truly want change, protect your goals from the illusion of early applause. Let the quiet become your foundation. Let your actions become your voice. The reward will come, not in the sound of other people's approval, but in the strength of your own results. When you share your goals with the world too soon, you don't just give away your focus. You hand over the steering wheel of your life to people who were never meant to drive it. Every time you tell someone your dreams, you open a door. And not everyone who walks through that door will understand what you're building. Some will question it. Some will doubt it. Some will pretend to support you while secretly hoping you fail. Not because they're evil, because they're limited. And if you're not careful, their limitations will become yours. Imagine telling someone you're planning to move to a new country to start a business. They don't see the hours of research, the savings account you've built quietly for years, the late nights of planning. All they see is risk. They project their fears onto your vision and say things like, "That sounds hard," or "Are you sure you're ready for something like that?" What started as a declaration of confidence now feels like something that needs to be defended. You begin to explain yourself. You start second guessing. What once felt like certainty is now under review. There's a subtle, dangerous shift that happens when you invite too many voices into your dreams. Instead of listening to your intuition, you begin to filter your decisions through the approval of others. You lose your own compass. You begin editing your goals, not based on what's right for you, but based on what's acceptable to others. You can't build a life that's true to you when you're constantly editing it for someone else's comfort. Some of the most iconic people in history faced this exact moment. Think of Walt Disney. When he was fired from a newspaper job, they told him he lacked imagination. Years later, he pitched the idea of Disneyland to over 300 investors, most of whom laughed at him. Imagine if he had internalized their doubt. Imagine if he believed their version of his future. The people around you are not always qualified to judge your dreams. They see your present, not your potential. They measure your idea against what they believe is possible, not what you are capable of. Your dream might be too big for their imagination, and that's okay. But it becomes a problem when you let their voice become louder than your own. It's not just doubt that derails people, it's distraction. The moment you share your goal, the opinions begin to pour in. Everyone suddenly becomes an expert. You should do it this way. Don't forget to do this. That'll never work unless you try what I did. And now, instead of focusing on your process, you're responding to feedback that was never asked for. Your mental space gets cluttered with expectations, judgments, and opinions from people who don't carry your vision, don't share your burden, and won't pay the price for your outcome. This is where most people lose the race, not because they lack talent or drive, but because they gave too much weight to voices that didn't matter. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need applause to start. You need clarity, and clarity comes in quiet spaces, not crowded conversation. When a seed is planted, it doesn't need a crowd to cheer it on. It needs protection. It needs time to develop roots before it breaks through the soil. Sharing your vision too soon is like digging up that seed every few days to show people that it's growing. In the process, you kill it. If your dream is still fragile, it needs your protection, not public display. You'll notice that the most resilient people in the world move differently. They don't chase external validation. They're not trying to prove anything to anyone. They walk with quiet confidence. They understand that noise is a distraction, and their energy is too valuable to waste explaining their every move. Sometimes, silence is not secrecy, it's strategy. When you stop giving everyone access to your goals, you create room to listen to your own wisdom. You begin to trust your own instincts. You sharpen your vision without interference. And most importantly, you remember why you started in the first place. You can't afford to let someone's limited thinking become the limit of your life. Your journey is yours, and it's sacred. Don't dilute it by putting it on display too early. Guard your focus, filter your circle, and never forget, most people speak from the level of their own fears, not your future. There's a deep psychological trap most people don't realize they've fallen into. It's subtle. It feels innocent. It even feels productive. But it's one of the main reasons people stall before they ever truly start. The trap is talking too much about what you're gonna do. You feel inspired. You've set a goal. Maybe you've decided to start a business, change careers, lose weight, or write a book. The vision feels clear and powerful, and you can almost taste the victory. So what's the next thing most people do? They start telling everyone. You mention it over dinner. You post it online. You text your friends. The more you talk, the more validated you feel. The people around you respond with encouragement. Some cheer you on. Others are impressed. Some just nod with approval. It feels good. Really good. But here's the problem. That feeling is chemically real. When you talk about your goals and receive praise, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurotransmitter it gives you when you actually achieve something. That moment of congratulations from someone else triggers the same emotional reward as making real progress. So now, your brain thinks you've done something significant, but you haven't. You haven't built the business. You haven't finished the first chapter. You haven't changed your habits. You've just said something. But your system has already been rewarded for the intention alone. And that's where it gets dangerous. The satisfaction of being praised for your plans starts to replace the hunger to follow through. The emotional payoff comes too soon. And what once felt urgent now feels optional. There's no fire pushing you forward because the applause arrived before the performance. Science backs this up. In a well-known study published in Psychological Science, researchers found that people who announced their goals publicly were less likely to achieve them than those who kept them private. Why? Because declaring the goal made them feel already accomplished. So they lost motivation to actually do the work. And if that wasn't enough, there's another danger that sets in when you share your goals too early. Other people's opinions. Every time you talk about what you're planning to do, you invite commentary, both good and bad. You open yourself to a flood of external voices. Some will encourage you, but many will question you. They'll ask, "Are you sure that's smart?" Or, "How will that even work?" Some will offer unsolicited advice. Others will quietly hope you don't succeed because your growth would force them to confront their own stagnation. Not everyone who doubts you is malicious, but even well-meaning people can derail your focus. They can plant seeds of doubt in your mind, forcing you to spend more time defending your idea than developing it. A young woman once told her family she wanted to be an artist. She was excited, committed, and ready to begin. But her father told her to choose something more stable. Her friends warned her that it was unrealistic. One person said, "Everyone wants to be creative. What makes you so special?" She started to shrink. She questioned her talent. She spent more time explaining herself than expressing herself. Eventually, she stopped drawing. Her dream didn't die because it lacked potential. It died because she shared it before it was strong enough to stand on its own. Your vision is like a newborn. In its early stages, it needs protection, not exposure. If you share it too soon, you give others the chance to weigh in before it's ready. And if you're still forming belief in yourself, those voices can easily overpower your own. There's also the issue of distraction. When you announce your goals, people start to watch. They ask for updates. They expect progress. Now your energy shifts from building in peace to performing under pressure. You're trying to look successful instead of becoming successful. Progress doesn't always look pretty in the early stages. It's messy, it's uncertain, it's full of trial and error. But when you've spoken too soon, you may feel pressure to skip steps, to polish what's still being formed. You stop focusing on the process and start managing perception. Talking too much too early can cost you everything you were trying to build. If you want to protect your momentum, hold your goals close. Let your actions speak. Let your results introduce you. The fewer people you invite into your planning room, the clearer your thinking becomes. You don't need external applause. You need internal clarity. What you're building deserves your full attention. There's a reason the most transformative work in life often happens behind closed doors. True change, deep growth, and serious creation are not loud processes. They don't demand attention. They demand energy. The more focused you are on what you're building, the less interest you have in explaining it to people who aren't building it with you. Silence is not weakness. It's strength under control. When you move in silence, you reclaim something that is constantly being stolen in today's world: your focus. Distraction is everywhere. Notifications, opinions, updates, and interruptions are always within reach. Talking about your plans is just one more distraction dressed up as productivity. You feel like you're doing something, but you're not moving, you're circling. Focus thrives in solitude. It sharpens in silence. When you stop broadcasting your intentions, your mind stops scattering itself across 1,000 imagined reactions. You stop wondering what people think, how they'll respond, whether they'll approve. Instead, your full attention shifts to the actual work, the daily discipline, the small, unglamorous actions that nobody sees and few have the patience to commit to. There's a hidden kind of power that grows in silence, one that comes from being so locked in on your purpose that outside noise can't penetrate. You're not worried about being understood. You're not waiting for validation. You're building in the dark, where it's quiet, where the roots go deep. Think about a mountain. It doesn't rise overnight. The pressure, the shift, the formation, it all happens underground. You don't hear anything, there are no announcements, but something powerful is taking shape. And when it finally emerges, you can't ignore it. Your life should be built the same way. There's a reason some of the most successful people don't speak on what they're doing until it's already done. Not because they're hiding, but because they've trained themselves to protect their process. They understand that energy leaks out when it's spent explaining, justifying, or announcing. When you speak too soon, you dilute your focus. But when you move in silence, you increase your capacity to think, create, and follow through. Your power gathers. It becomes dense. It becomes real. Focus is a currency. Spend it wisely. Look at athletes in training. The ones who train hardest aren't the ones posting every session online. They're in the gym before sunrise, away from cameras, away from crowds. They don't talk about it. They live it. And when it's time to perform, everyone sees what they've built. The same goes for entrepreneurs, artists, and innovators. The world finds out about what they're doing when the product launches, when the book hits the shelves, when the idea changes an industry, not before. The silence wasn't absence, it was investment. Noise is tempting. You'll be tempted to share. You'll want to talk about what you're planning, how far you've come, what's next. It feels like momentum. But momentum that stays internal is what creates transformation. When your attention is entirely on execution, you start to separate yourself. You begin to perform at a level that isn't driven by ego, but by mastery. This isn't about secrecy. It's about discipline. Choosing to stay quiet is not about fear or insecurity. It's about knowing what really matters. You don't need more people watching. You need more time doing. You need your energy channeled, not scattered. Silence also gives you the space to evolve. When nobody's watching, you can fail privately. You can adjust without judgment. You can change course without explanation. Growth becomes cleaner. Decisions become clearer. You're not navigating based on how it looks, but how it feels. You're guided by instinct, not impression. When you're not performing for others, you get to be honest with yourself. You get to admit what's not working, what needs to improve, where the gaps are, and you fix it not for applause, not for a post, but because you care about the outcome. Some of the most powerful breakthroughs happen when nobody else knows what you're going through. In the dark seasons, in the quiet mornings, in the lonely grind. Those are the moments that separate talkers from doers. That's where character is formed. That's where power is built. Let others chase attention. Let them share every move. Let them need to be seen. You don't have time for that. You're building something bigger than applause. You're shaping a future that speaks for itself. You're creating something so solid that when it's finally seen, it can't be ignored. And it didn't need to be explained. Not divided energy chasing validation. You can spend hours explaining who you are, what you're planning to do, and where you're heading. You can write the perfect post, give the perfect speech, craft the perfect elevator pitch. But words have limits. They stir interest, maybe admiration, but they don't prove anything. What people believe about you long-term is not based on what you say. It's based on what they see. Results speak in a way that words never can. They're undeniable. They don't need defense. They don't need hype. They arrive and they do the talking. You don't have to convince anyone you're serious when your life is the evidence. This is the power of letting your actions speak. You shift the energy from trying to persuade others to fully committing to the work. The need to be understood fades. The urge to be seen fades. What remains is movement forward, focused, and real. People trust results. They trust what's finished, what's consistent, what stands. Anyone can say they're going to start a company, Only a few build one that pays salaries and solves problems. Anyone can talk about writing a book. Only a few actually finish the manuscript and publish. It's easy to declare your intentions. It's rare to bring them into existence. Letting your results speak doesn't mean you're hiding. It means you're prioritizing proof over performance. It means you're not trying to look successful. You're putting in the work to become it. When your life starts to reflect your vision, you don't have to say a word. People notice. They may not know how long you were up at night, how many times you doubted yourself, how many silent battles you fought, but they see what came of it. They see the business you built, the transformation in your body, the skill you've mastered, the confidence that wasn't there before. That quiet rise speaks volumes. Think about a tree. It doesn't make noise while it grows. But one day, it's standing strong, rooted, and towering over the same ground where it once was just a seed. No one saw the daily stretch toward the sun, the underground strengthening, the seasons of stillness. They only see the result, and it commands respect. This is how real credibility is built, not by announcing who you are, but by living it consistently. Quietly, powerfully. A person who delivers results never has to beg for respect. They don't need to prove their worth in conversation. Their work, their habits, their presence, it all speaks for them. And there's something else that happens when you focus on results over words. You learn faster. You fail faster. You improve faster. Because you're not wasting time curating a narrative. You're in the trenches. You're testing. You're iterating. You're getting feedback from reality, not opinions. When you're locked into results, you stop performing and start transforming. You stop needing to be perfect and start becoming effective. There's a well-known phrase in sports, let the scoreboard talk. Coaches say it to players who want to retaliate with words, who want to prove something to a crowd or an opponent. The message is simple. Talking wastes energy. Delivering wins the game. You don't need to argue with people who doubt you. You don't need to respond to critics or explain yourself to the ones who don't understand your pace. When you're rooted in action, your wins will arrive on their own timeline. And when they do, they'll carry more weight than any defense you could have offered. It's tempting to speak too early, to prove your seriousness, your potential, your vision. But the world doesn't need more explanations. It needs more example. Be the example. Build in a way that your presence tells the story. Carry yourself in a way that people know you've been working, not talking. Let your health, your business, your craft, your mindset, your results reflect your discipline. People may not notice at first. That's okay. Most growth happens before it's seen. But when it becomes visible, it's real. And when it's real, it has gravity. You walk into rooms differently, not because you've declared anything, but because your consistency has shaped something others can't ignore. You don't need to be louder. You need to be better, sharper, stronger, clearer. Every hour spent on building will do more for you than any number of posts, announcements, or speeches. When your results arrive, they'll speak your name with a tone no introduction can match. You don't need to tell people what you're doing with your life. You don't need to announce your goals, defend your dreams, or explain your process. You don't need to chase permission. You don't need applause before the outcome. You need clarity. You need discipline. You need the kind of focus that thrives in silence, not because you're hiding, but because you're growing. Let the world wonder what you're building. Let them question where you've gone. Let them talk while you work. The truth is, the ones who make the most noise are often the furthest from the finish line. The ones who move in silence, who wake up early, stay up late, who do the work no one claps for, those are the ones who arrive somewhere extraordinary. You owe yourself a life built on results, not reputation, on action, not announcements, on depth, not display. So when the urge comes to speak, pause. When the temptation to share rises, wait. Let your silence become sacred. Let your effort become sacred. Let your results speak on your behalf. And when they ask you one day, what have you been up to? You won't need to say much, because your life will say everything.